I feel Mahabharata is much more relatable. It's much more in that gray zone. Ramayana was a pure white and black thing. But I think Mahabharata is much more relatable because a lot of facets of human nature are visible there. We tend to negotiate daily almost, different circumstances. All of that, I feel is more relatable Mahabharata. Ma'am, the second question is, what were the major factors that influenced the negotiations in Mahabharata as per you?
So there are different types of negotiation. Mahabharata is all about niti, and there are different types of niti. So primarily we have Rajniti, Sahajniti and Kutniti. Rajniti is about the polity, how to run the governments, how to run the Rajadharma, how to implicate the policies in the society. That is Rajniti. Whom will you become the ally, who cannot be your ally, what to do with the allies, what not to do with the allies, what is the dharma of war. So everything is Rajniti. Sahaj Niti is what we perform during our domestic environment. What do we do? How do we take families? What is a family? Whom we consider as family? What is friend? What is it being unfriending? So both the positive and negative. That is Sahaj Niti. How to accept the flaws of others and how to glorify a friend, how to glorify a system which affects your domestic environment. And then the Kutniti. Kutniti is diplomacy, what Krishna performed, what Bhishma performed. That is Kutniti. So these three types of niti, but all three have Sam, Dam, Danda and Bhed. These are the Upang, the subsections of the niti. So for me, the negotiations, all negotiation can be described under these categories. That whether this negotiation was under Sahaj or was it a part of Rajniti or whether it's a part of Kutniti. And then what they were doing meant for, whether it was for Sam, whether it was for Dam, whether it was for Dand, whether it was for Bhed. We need to categorize these. So basically each can be placed into 7 categories.
Understood, ma'am.
Right.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, the third question is, how did dharma and ethics affect the decisions or outcomes in these negotiations in Mahabharata?
Right. We'll come to the list of negotiations at the end. We are now talking the generic ideas. So when we say dharma, what is dharma is being beautifully described here by the meaning of what is adharma. And when you glorify adharma, then only people will ask the dharma. If you keep on, serving dharma, then it is like too much of sweet. And then we don't realize how the societies would be which don't have dharma. And that lesson we learnt in Ramayana. Ramayana is all about Maryada. Ramayana is all about setup of values of life. So you can't even imagine where there is no value of life. And if there is an absence of value, we just call it Danav. We just call it Rakshas. So there is a binary in Ramayana. In Mahabharata, there is no binary of dharma and adharma. In Mahabharata, the same person can be questioned for adharma also. Because in Mahabharata war, we have seen that many put questions on Krishna also. When the sun is eclipsed, or even on Karna also, that why he could not fight back and why he was killed when he was without the armory. So it's a relative question. But dharma brings down the ultimate. It's like a sieving of the facts, filtering the facts. What is left at the end is only that part which the entire society accepts. And the society does not accept anything which is adharma. So that is why dharma is a driving part of all negotiations. All those negotiations which were not driven by dharma, they are said to be adharma. And that is why those negotiations failed. The other negotiations, they may looked like adharma. For example, Draupadi marrying the 5 princes. It looks like adharma. But in those days, polygamy was in practice, whether for males or for females. Kunti already had 5 sons from 5 sources. So it's not something new. So that is why it is accepted that Draupadi was married to 5 princes. But at the same time, the 5 princes have not taken the Ek Patni Vrat. So they had married other ways also. They had other wives also. So it was not an adharma. We have to read Mahabharata from different angles, the same brief from different angles. Then we'll understand what is dharma and what is adharma.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is, which negotiation tactics or methods did the key characters like Krishna, Bhishma, Duryodhan, even you would last mention, ma'am, Karna, employed in Mahabharata?
Right. So negotiation is always on the beneficiaries. Like what benefit I'll receive out of it. So that is labh. Labh is always the ultimate motive that we set down the negotiation. The only parameter is how do we judge that labh? Whether this labh, this benefit is a generic term, whether the entire society is going to be labhanvit or it's a beneficiary for everyone, whether only a person, whether only the ego. Now this is for Anupamji also, because egos have been negotiated. The war was fought because of the egos and not because who was more qualified to have a war. It was more like an egoist war. So we need to understand that negotiations have to be judged on the basis of what type of gain the parties would have. Negotiation is not one party decision. Both the parties have to agree to that term, the terminology. So both how the labh to one party will be acceptable to the other. So it is put up in such a manner that it looks a win-win situation. Unless it is win-win, no one would go for negotiation, or that negotiation will not happen. Like Kauravas, they said, no, we will not give you 5 villages. So that entire negotiation failed over there. So we need to understand what is the quantum of benefit, whether it is individualistic, whether it is larger, whether entire society, whether entire race, whether the entire country. So we need to understand the quantum of benefit.
Right, ma'am. And ma'am, which of these tactics, as per you, are most effective and why?
I think the most effective was to have the dharma set up again on the throne of Kurukshetra, because Kuru Vansh was the largest throne. And if we find that the kings of Kuru Vansh, they themselves are not following dharma, so the entire race would go to kaput, and that's why the Mahabharata happened, because it was all like shattering all other dharma, the values. What is dharma? Dharma is the value. So you are not having the value system for your daughter-in-laws. You have no value system for your sons. You have no value system for your mother. You can just drive them out into the jungles. You can just burn them out. You can just try to kill them. You can just molest them. So this was happening time and again. Remember, Krishna had to evacuate 16,000 ladies and then call them their wives, his wife, 16,000 Raniya. And what was the quantum of adharma that was happening at that day? Kans was there, who jailed his own sister, and killing the children. Now, this is something like the height of adharma we have seen. In one Krishna's life, if someone reads only Krishna's life, as a child when born, as a child, as a prince, as a king, as a friend. So one would get the traces of adharma because he has been fighting only adharma throughout his life. The all other stories evolve around Krishna only. Krishna is the center figure. So I think the tactic which was the base of all negotiation was re-establishment of dharma. And then not alone, the very first shloka, it says of Mahabharat, Nar and Narayan. So the divine interception is very much there. And then Nar is the human world. So dharma can happen only at Prithvi. Because Devlok has no other option. It is dharma only. We only can perform both type of feats, dharmic or adharmic. So the establishing of dharma, one has to be at the Prithvi, and see, there are two ways. One is expansion, one is concentration. Expansion means when a human being rise up and becomes Bhagavan. That is expansion, because then you bring him out of the local situation, local mentality, local relations, and then expands itself so much that people start calling the person as Bhagwan. And concentration is when Bhagwan concentrates himself or herself to a particular cause, for a particular period, for a particular place, and then goes there, and then all the questions that, oh, Krishna was a Lord himself, why should he be defeated? Yes, Lord, but he has concentrated himself for a purpose. Avatar. So that is the difference between Bhagwan and Avatar. Avatar is a concentrated, a smaller version, where you have a purpose, you have a roop, you have a place, and then you live only up to that time, and then you leave when your purpose is over. And then again, leaving will also decide the manner you have taken the avatar. So we see these things happening. So if we study Krishna, I think this answer can be taken up from there, that even to establish dharma, adharma is allowed. So, yen ken prakaren, we say, kaise bhi karo, anyhow. The word anyhow has a very larger meaning. So when Krishna decides that whatever I have to do, I have to side only dharma. That is how we can judge the dharma as a driving force.
Right, ma'am. And ma'am, while this question is not there, just out of inquisitiveness, who was the most effective negotiator, ma'am? Was it Krishna? Because he was, called as the master manipulator. Because he could actually, he did all the negotiations, some failed, some came through. He tried everything, Samdam, they'd done everywhere that he could. So, ask you, ma'am.
So, there are the women who have been the strongest negotiators. Starting from Ganga. Shantanu's wife Ganga, the first negotiator. Then Satyavati, again Shantanu's wife. Then Kunti. Then Draupadi, and then Uttara. So it's a women-driven circumstance. Each place, each duration of feat is being mentioned and asserted by the women only. Had the women not asked, the men would not have negotiated at all. So I don't find any male character who is stronger than the women of Mahabharata. So I would say feminine force.
Very different perspective, ma'am. Because if you ask people...
No, they are the negotiator. Even Krishna is a negotiator.
Correct.
They are the tool. But they are not the cause to initiate. Krishna never said, okay, let me go. He sent. And why is he sent? So, because few feminine forces are there. Kunti is there. Draupadi is there. So Krishna decides and says, okay, you don't wait, I'll go. So for me, Mahabharata is very weak on the men's side. They are just warriors. And warriors can be, just motivated and get the work done. But then what's happening behind the scene? the backstage management, the gain of purposeness, who found that there is no dharma, who found that we need our sons, we need our husband, we need our people to establish dharma. They are always women in this story. And I mentioned that in my lecture also, because Kauravas had the absence of feminine force. Only Gandhari is seen there, and she is also blind. So she could never become that driving force to give values to Kauravas or to improve upon. They could never improve upon. All the major Shastras are with Pandavas, because they are improving upon their skills, their value systems, their living styles, putting themselves to different conditions, grooming themselves up to all sorts of adversities. So for me, right from beginning, when I see Ganga, when I see Satyavati, then Amba, Ambalika, Ambika, they are all driving forces. They made it happen that the males should take some decision. They drive males to take decision. Bhishma's woe comes when Satyavati puts down a condition that only my son will become the heir to Kuruvansh. And then Bhishma says, okay, I'll not ask my son. And then he says, but how would you prevent? So he says, okay, I'll not marry only. So women are the forces who are the greatest negotiators in this entire story. At the end, when on the last night Ashwatthama kills everyone in the Pandavas' camp, so Uttara had Abhimanyu's son in her womb, Parikshit. Even that is killed. And then she asked Krishna that you gave me a boon. And then Krishna said, okay, and then he saves that child in the womb, and that's how Parikshit is born. So till the end of it, we see a very active feminine line in Mahabharata.
True, ma'am. I'm convinced now that it was the women who were actually pulling the strings and others were merely tools, I guess.
Yes.
Ma'am, coming on to some questions which will now have comparisons. So ma'am, which negotiation tactic from Mahabharata do you think is still relevant or which can be still applied in the modern negotiation practices that we are doing right?
So I think all. And when we come to the incidents, you will find that even today we are practicing the same things. Sending the emissary, sending the ambassador, taking initiatives, doing hard negotiations, or following it up, not giving up after saying yes, your yes is not final till you see it happening. Many things. So I don't see any loss in the time phrase where we are losing out to some negotiation tactics.
Right, ma'am. So the next question is also, ma'am, quite similar to this, and I'm kind of sure about the answer, but it is, what is the key difference that you see between the negotiation ethics in Mahabharata and those in the modern practices now? So
the only few differences I can see, and that is the cultural difference. Because now the negotiations are done under the supervisions. You are not the only player. There are lobbies around you. There are market forces. There are economical forces. At that time we have not seen the economic part of it except while creating the allies. Otherwise, today we have shifted more to materialistic choices, and that has really created a very big difference in what conditions do we negotiate. And I have seen the recent few negotiations which have gone to stalemate. One is our captive in Pakistani jail. We could not get him released, and the negotiation is right there as a stalemate, as if we have forgotten. We have also seen our negotiations for the nuclear weapon, what Manmohan Singh ji did. And then after the treaty, where are we going? I have not seen any progress to that. Then our negotiations on this globalization with Russia. These are static negotiations. With China, it's a static negotiation. So where is the dynamism? The dynamism is coming with Arab countries. There is a progress of trust. So it's a very oblique situation where the market forces are driving our negotiations now, which was not the case at that time. The values were the driving forces at that time, not the market. But today, because even the countries are formed out of the market value, in all the Vimarsh theories, the narratives in India, you see the packages for estates. Those estates get better package which could assure them the kingdom, the rule. A big package for Bihar, big package for Odisha, big package, but Tamil Nadu doesn't get. Why? Because Tamil Nadu itself is a very happy state or a rich state. So that state neither asks nor is given. So the negotiation is almost zero with Tamil Nadu. With Kerala, the negotiation is almost zero because petrodollars are already making the state rich. So even they don't ask and they don't care. But those states which are poor and which have to depend on so market has become a big force today, economics. There I find a difference. At that time, dhan would come at the end. Though it's a part of Purusharth, dharma, arth, kam, moksha. So earth is there. It's not that it is neglected. But first is dharma. And then comes earth.
Correct.
Yeah.
So ma'am, would we say that the ethics part is a bit blurred in the modern negotiation?
No, I don't think so. Ethics is still the bottom line because that is the point where you can actually pull the person. That no, this is unethical. Though, intention might be unethical, but even now people are scared to speak it clearly. That means dharma is still at the base. We can still talk about ethics. And that is why our court system is still functional. The day we disown ethics totally, our judiciary will fall. Because then there is no baseline. Whatever I feel is dharma. Whatever you feel is dharma. If I am right in my way and you are right in your way, then where is the society? The binding force of the society is dharma. The West call is ethics and moral values. We call it dharma. That is the only difference.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is, are there any negotiation tactics from Mahabharata that you believe are no longer used or have lost relevance? I think you've already kind of...
Yeah, but I think the physical war. Today we just scare each other with nuclear bomb, atom bomb. No one wants to play with that. That tactic, that कौन सा शक्तिशाली राज्य है उसने कहाँ prove किया, that has become very irrelevant because even to Pakistan we can't underestimate because the forces behind Pakistan may any day erupt and you might land up in an unestimated war. So I think physical war is something which is not into a praiseworthy situation today. People would like to avoid that.
True, ma'am. There is a point in there. And ma'am, coming to the last question, which lessons from Mahabharata do you find practically useful for today's diplomatic, military and organizational negotiations?
So the only lesson I, after reading so many times Mahabharata, found that you should not interchange the niti. Where it is Sahaj Niti, don't play Rajniti. Where it is Rajniti, don't play Kutniti. Where Kutniti is needed, don't play Rajniti. So the only lesson is that each niti is adaptable or is applicable to a certain value system only. If we misplace them, if we mishandle them, then it is a beautiful sentence from Mahabharata, Raja Kalasya Karanam. There was a question that who is responsible for the condition of the Rajya? Like, is the people or the society or the market forces or the political forces? Who is responsible for the prosperity or the degradation of a rajya? So the answer comes, Vidur says, Raja Kalasya Karanam. It's only the king who decides the fate of the kingdom. Who is the king? That is most important. What are his decisions? So if the king is not taking proper decisions, then everything will go kaput. And that's why I say that whatever niti is to be implemented, that is the king's role. That only a king can decide. No one can challenge the king. When Modi ji, while returning, and he just dropped at Pakistan, we may like or we may dislike, but we can't question. But what niti was that? So that was at the place of Kutniti, he was playing a Sahaj Niti, playing like a family member visiting a marriage. That turned out to be the Kutniti. So only time will calculate a king. That's why the histories are written. Otherwise, history will be irrelevant. Whatever has happened has happened. Why should we write it? But histories evaluate the decisions of the kings. And that's how the societies are evaluated, whether this society was ruled with Yashasvi king or Parabhavi king. Who was the ruler? So that's how. So should I come to the major negotiations?
Yes, ma'am.
So the first negotiation was between Brahma and Vyas. When Vyas blueprinted this entire Mahabharata and went to Brahma, Brahma said, oh, it's a very large plan and I don't find any scribe, I don't find any writer for you. Only person who can write is Ganesh. So do you want to go to Ganesh? Because it's not easy to please Ganesh. And Vyas said, okay. So this is the first negotiation. The second negotiation is between Ganesh and Brahma. Ganesh said, okay, I'm ready to write, but I'll write till you speak. The moment you stop speaking, I'll stop writing. Then Brahma said, fine, but I also have a condition. You will write when you will, decode all the possible meanings of that shloka. That can be given in any time. So by the time Ganesh would write one shloka, Vyas would coin 4 to 5 other shlokas. So with this negotiation, this entire Mahabharata was written, and as we know, there are 60 lakh shlokas. And out of 60 lakh shlokas, 15 lakhs are given to Devalok, 14 lakh to Gandharvalok, like that 1 lakh to Prithvilok. So this I would count as the first negotiation between the writer and the scribe. Because writer is not writing himself, someone else is appointed as a writer. Then of course there are types of niti. Out of negotiations we could find that Rajniti can be formed, Sahaj Niti can be formed, Koot Niti can be formed, and out of that Sam Niti, Dam Niti, Dand Niti, Bhed Niti. So these strategies can be derived from the negotiations. Then I would say then Shantanu and Ganga. King Shantanu and Ganga, when they married, Ganga had a condition that whatever I do, you won't question. The moment you question, I'll leave. And Shantanu agreed to that. But when 7 children were drowned by Ganga, when she was about to drown the 8th child, Shantanu asked, why are you drowning our child? And then she just left and said, this is the son, and Bhishma was born, Devavrat. And she said, I'm taking him away and I'll return him back when he is ready to come to this world. And for 25 years she takes away, and then Parashar, Parshuram and Vyas, they teach Devvrat all the Vedas and all the skills of life, and then he is returned back to Shantanu. So this negotiation. Then the another negotiation comes between Shantanu and Satyavati. And Satyavati, as we know, wanted her child to be the king, and Shantanu could not say that because he had already promised to Ganga that Devvrat will be the king. And then Devvrat, when he comes to know, he comes in between the negotiation and offers that, okay, I'll never marry. So Satyavati's children will only become the king, like that. So this is again a basic negotiation. Then the another negotiation was between Satyavati and Bhishma, because there were three princes who were having their Swayamvar, Amba, Ambika, Ambalika, and Bhishma went there to represent Kuruvansh, not the princes themselves. And when he went there, he did not even wait for Swayamvar and picked them up and brought them back. And as we know, Amba said that I am given away to King Shalva, and he sends her there, and then Shal refuses. She comes back and he refuses again, and then she decides to take a vow on Bhishma. So this negotiation is between Amba and Shiva. She does a very big penis, and Shiv is happy, and he says, you ask anything, and she says, I want to kill Bhishma. And he says that in this life you cannot kill, but I promise next life you will born as Shikhandi and you will be able to be the cause of death of Bhishma. So this negotiation is very important because in Mahabharata this played a very big role, Shikhandi. So this I found as a very important one. Then of course Drupad and Drona. Drupad had promised Drona to give half of the kingdom, which he did not perform, and that also became a cause of war later on. Then Khandav Prasth and Indraprasth. You know, when these five princes, they married Draupadi, and Dhritarashtra came to know that now Drupad is our Vyavahi. So he invited everyone back to Hastinapur, but with a condition that I'll give you a place and you set up your kingdom there. And then he gave them Khandav Prasth. So that's how Indraprasth came to being. And then they were negotiated that you will not live in Hastinapur, you will live in Khandav Prasth. That's how they went over there. Then there was another negotiation between Duryodhan and Shakuni. When that Dyut Sabha happened, Jayanta Sabha, and this game of dice happened, there Duryodhan was supposed to play, but he made Shakuni to play on his behalf, which was not at all declared earlier. So there was a negotiation between Duryodhan and Shakuni, which again became very important. And then of course Krishna and Duryodhan, where Krishna went for the famous negotiation of asking for 5 villages. But if you see those 5 villages, they are in a linear position. I think I have a picture. 1 second, let me just show you. If I can show you. No, I don't have. 1 second, because it's really important that you understand that they are the 5 prasth. So Bagpat, Sonipat, Panipat, you know, these 5. Why I can't see that? Ek minute. No, I'll just find out. It was there. I'm able to find out here. So we need to understand how come those village only were asked, because they were at the other end, like a boundary of the triangle. And if you block this boundary, and in between there was Ganges, so no one could have gone beyond the Ganges. So it was a natural boundary. Only one village would fall across the Ganges, and that village was the thing where the Kauravas could not come, because that was their point where they could save their own kingdom. So it was a very wise segregation, but that is how they could understand the Kauravas, and they refused giving these 5 villages. because it was at the boundary of. Let me just find out. I had the picture. 1 minute.
No.
Okay. I don't know if I can show you this. Yeah. So these this was Kuru Vansh. If you see the triangle, and these are the 5 villages. And if you see the blue line, that is Ganges, and only one is here across the Ganges, and that is Bagpat. Bagpat lies on the other side of the Ganges, and all other 4 is starting from Panipat, then Sonipat, Panipat, Indraprasth, and Tilpat. These are the modern names, so they find here. But you will find the Google image anywhere of these 5. So then now you understand why they refused. Because it was actually one entry point, and they could have stopped, and that is on the west. And Kuru Vansh had most of the alliances in the west. Gandhar was on the west, Takshila was on the west. Most of the kingdoms were on the west. So they would have lost a very big safety point if they would have agreed to these 5 villages. These 5 villages are not just a small area. It was linear and would take whole of the boundary. So that was a big negotiation. Then of course Karna and Kunti. When Karna promised Kunti that her 5 children will be alive. Either Arjuna kills Karna or Karna kills Arjuna. So one of those 5 will always be alive. So that is very important. Then of course Bhishma and Karna. The negotiation with Duryodhana. That till Bhishma is the commander-in-chief, Karna will not fight war. That again is a very, I would say, very drastic condition at that time, because he was a major warrior. He was the person who was instrumental in bringing allies to Kauravas. Because just prior to war, he went all around and won many kingdoms. And then brought them under the Kuru Vansh. So people knew Karna more. But when he doesn't fight, many of the loyalties, they get diluted. So that was a very major decision. Then Karna and Indra. We say that Karna is Danveer. No, because Karna knew that Kavach Kundal are only the protectors. They will only protect him not to die, but that doesn't mean that he would be a winner also. So instead of that, he said, I would rather die, but give me some shastra through which I can kill Arjuna. And that was the negotiation with Indra. That Indra said, okay, I'll give you Vasuki Shastra, but you give me the Kavach Kundal. And that was also for beneficiary, because Krishna had seen he cannot kill Arjuna. And he would die a very bad death, but if he has Kavach Kundal, he won't be able to die even. So, to release Karna. And then Kunti and Pandavas. Kunti never went to Khandavprasth. She always stayed in Hastinapur. And her negotiation with Pandavas was that you do the Rajasuya Yagya, come to Hastinapur and then meet me. And for 12 years they were in Hastinapur, they were in Indraprasth, but they could never come. Pandavas would never come to Hastinapur, and Kunti never went to Indraprasth. So that was a motivating, spirit behind the Mahabharata war, to win it, to have the Rajasuya Yagya. Then of course, okay. So these are the important negotiations I think we must quote. And few I did earlier, like Uttara and Krishna for Parikshit, Draupadi and Pandavas, that one time with one husband, and that arrangement went on for years. 1 year with one prince, that negotiation, so.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You explained everything so well, and few things that I actually never knew. One was the role of women,
Ji.
that how they have been the main negotiators. Second was I always thought those 5 villages uh, was a very small thing to ask, and it was stubbornness of Duryodhan, which was in my mind that he was a very bad negotiator and he was very stubborn. But come to think of it, if it was so strategically located, then it was, I think, correct on the part of Kauravas not to give them away.
Right.
I was not aware about that.
Right.
So, lot of insights, ma'am. And so, ma'am, without further ado, I will now request General Anupam to start his question. And I thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank